Hi everyone, welcome back to another session of Apex Trigger Scenarios. So in this particular session, I'm going to show you how you can create a rollup summary field for lookup relationship in Salesforce. Okay. So before we jump on to the scenario, I would like to brief you on what a rollup summary is in Salesforce. So let's say if any of your two objects in Salesforce are related to each other via parent-child relationship, and let's say you want to show the count of child records on the parent record, or if you want to find out minimum maximum of a field from the child record and you want to show it to on the parent record, then you can create a roll up summary field on the parent object. Okay, so the only catch over here is that in what kind of relationship you can create a roll up summary field. Okay, so as we know that we have lookup relationship and we have master detail relationship, right? So roll-up summary field in a master detail relationship, you can, when you actually go ahead and create it in a standard way, right? If you create a roll-up summary field, then it automatically calculates, or whatever aggregate function that you have applied, it automatically calculates and gives you the final calculation on the parent record for the child. Okay, but let's say if your two objects are related to each other via lookup relationship, then you would have to populate such a field using Apex Trigger. Okay, so let me go ahead and give you an example of a roll-up summary field. Okay, so okay, so let's say this is my object manager, this is my org, and let me first show you an example of master detail relationship where you can actually create a roll-up summary field, and then I will show you a lookup relationship field where you actually don't get the option of creating a roll-up summary field. Okay, so for example, account. Okay, so if I go to account and if I, let's say, okay, so we all know that account and opportunities are related, right? So if I go to an account, and here, if you see here, you can see opportunities, right? So here I can add multiple opportunities, right? So one account can have multiple opportunities, right? So now let's say I want to create a field on account, let's say total number of opportunities, and I want that field to be updated every time I am adding opportunities. Let's say if I add here two more opportunities, then 2 plus 1, then that field should be showing as 3 opportunities. Let's say if I delete 1, then it should show only 2. If I add more 5, then it should show 6. So based on whatever the number of opportunity records that you have, your field should be getting updated every time you make any update over here, right? So that is called a roll-up summary field. Okay, so again, there is one exception in Salesforce. So if you actually go to account and so we all know that account, contact, and then account and opportunities are related to each other, right? But I'm not sure that you have ever observed, but for example, account and contact and account and opportunity are not related to each other via master detail, but they are related to each other via lookup relationship. For example, if I go to contact, okay, let me go to contact first. So one second. So here, this is the relationship, right? But contact and account, the way we have always understood is that they are master detail, like parent child relationship, but it is a master detail, but it is actually connected to each other via lookup relationship. But Salesforce, even though account and contact are related to each other via lookup relationship, Salesforce treats them or gives them the flexibility of getting treated as master detail relationship. Okay, so in this case, in account and contact, account is the master and contact is the detail. Okay, so and you guys would already be knowing that what happens in a master detail relationship, right? If you delete the parent child, then the if you delete the parent record, then the child records automatically gets deleted. So for example, if I create an account and if I create 3 associated contacts, so and then I delete the account, then all the 3 contacts will get deleted as well, right? So that is the behavior of a master detail relationship and not a lookup. Even though it is related via lookup, the cascading deletion is on for account and contact because Salesforce treats them as a master detail relationship. Now, the second point is, again, it is the same case with opportunity. So if you actually go to opportunity and if you navigate to fields and relationship, you would see that, account. Yes, this is again related to each other via lookup relationship. But again, this gets the flexibility of getting treated as master detail relationship. So if you have one account and if you have 3 opportunities, and if you delete the account, all the opportunities will get automatically deleted. So the cascaded deletion will happen. That only happens in master detail, although it is related to each other via lookup, but it acts as master detail. So now the question is whether we can create a Rollup summary field on account for contact and opportunity or not, because as per the treatment that it gets, is it's a master detail treatment, right? And as I explained you that you can create a Rollup summary field as long as your 2 objects are associated with each other as a master detail relationship. Okay, so let's just go ahead and find out. So I will navigate to accounts and I will try to create a Rollup summary field for contact and for opportunity, and let's see what and all other options that it gives us. Okay, so I am going to account, fields and relationships, and let me click on new. Okay, so I am clicking on Rollup summary field and next. So here, let's say I want to count the contacts, number of contacts. Okay, and if I click on next, I think I already have a field, so let me give it another name. Okay, next here. So here summarized objects. So whatever the objects that the option that you'll get here, you can only use that, right? So basically it tries to show you the object with which account is related as master and detail. But if you actually click on it, you will not see the contact option. That is an exception, but it will show you the opportunity option. So I'm hoping that you're trying to, like, you're getting the point that although account is associated with contact and opportunities via lookup relationships, and even though they are getting the treatment of master detail, still the Rollup summary field on account gives you only access to create a Rollup summary field on opportunities and not on contacts. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create a Rollup summary field on opportunities so that we can see that how it works. So let me just go back and change the name first. Number of opportunities. And here, so I am choosing opportunities. Now here it is giving me these options, right? So first one is count, whether I want to count the number of opportunities that are there on the account, or do I want to perform summation on any of the fields which are there on opportunity, or if I want to find the minimum of any value which are there on the opportunity, or if I want to find the maximum. For example, let's say on one account I have 3 opportunities, and all the 3 opportunities will have some amount on them, right? Let's say opportunity 1 has 1,000 and opportunity 2 has amount as 2,000 and opportunity 3 has amount as 3,000. But on account, I want to show what is the minimum account that is available on all the associated opportunities. So I can select minimum here, and then in the field I can select amount, right? So in our case, let's just go ahead with the count. So I'm selecting the count because I just want to count the number of opportunities that are associated to the account. And then I'll hit on next. And save. So I have added this field on the layout as well, number of opportunities. So let's go and so number of opportunity, it is showing as 1, right? Because there is 1 opportunity already added here. So let me add 1 more, then it should get updated to 2. Okay, so here save and new, and let me add 1 more, so that, see, here it is getting updated automatically. It showed 2, right? If I add another opportunity, and it is adding the number because I have selected the count. I just want to count the number of opportunities. Okay, so that is why. And the moment I hit on save, it's going to get updated to 3. Okay, so this is how you can create a roll-up summary field. Okay, and always remember the exception that I just talked about. So even though if it's not a matter of account contact or account opportunities, if you have to if there are any two custom objects and they are related to each other via master detail relationship, then you can always go ahead on the master object and create a roll-up summary field for the child object. Okay, and you will get the whatever, based on whatever option you had selected, let it be a count, minimum, maximum, or average, you will get that particular calculation automatically. Okay, so and also I talked about the cascaded deletion, so I wanted to show you that how it actually works. So let's say if I delete the account, you can see that as I told you, right, that account and contact are actually treated as master detail, but they are associated to each other via lookup relationship. So if you already know, in lookup relationship, if you delete the parent, the child records don't get deleted. That only happens in master. But if I show you here, right, let me open this contact and let me open this contact. Okay, and I will delete this account, and then if I go over here and I refresh the page, it will show me that these are deleted as well. Okay, so let me delete this, and the same thing will happen with opportunities as well, because again, same relationship, right, they are treated as master detail, even though it's on the object level it's just a lookup. So let me open these opportunities and I will show you what happens when I delete this account. So let me go ahead and delete this. I deleted this account. Now see, it started showing me that this record is deleted, right? The same thing will, okay, this is another opportunity, but this was the account. Okay, so you saw, right, that if I deleted the parent record, the contacts, associated contacts got deleted, and the associated opportunities got deleted too. Okay, so now let's go back to the slide and see what is the scenario that I have listed here. So now here we could create a roll-up summary field because they are getting treated as master detail. But if you have two custom objects where they are related to each other via lookup relationship, then you will not be able to create a roll-up summary field just the way we just created, right? So what you would have to do is you would have to create a field on the parent object, and then you would have to write an apex trigger in order to calculate the number of child records. If any kind of aggregate function you want to perform, you have to do that using trigger. Okay, so in our scenario, what we are going to do is we are going to create two custom objects, class and student, and then we are going to create a lookup relationship field on the student object. Okay, and then we will set a counter for students on class. So if I will open one class record, then I should be able to see how many students are associated on that class, right? It could show 1 student, 2 students, 10 students, or 20 students, that way. Okay, so and also when we actually go ahead and create a roll up, that, so for example, on class I will create a field, right, number of students. So let's say if on one class, on the related list of students, if it is showing 10 students, then on that field that I've created on class, number of students, it should show me 10 count, right, the number of students that are associated. So we would have to write the logic, not just thinking one aspect but different aspects. For example, when you add a student, then it should keep on adding to that field, right? Let's say I just associated one student to one class, then the field on the class will start showing the count as 1. If I associate another student, then the count should get updated to 2. But let's say if I delete one student, right, from the association of the class, then the count that was there before 2, that should also minus, right, because I deleted one student, right? And the third scenario would be, let's say I deleted some student and then I undeleted, right? So in that case also we have to see what actually happens. So if I undelete, it will again come back to the same class record which it was associated before, right? So in that case also your counter should get updated. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. So I will start by creating these two objects, and then we'll create the lookup relationship, and we'll create the counter field, and then we will jump to the trigger logic. Okay, so let me go ahead and create the objects. So class and student, right? So let's just first create class, and then we'll create student. And that's all. Save and new. And let's also create the other object, right? Student. So student. Okay, so we have created both the objects, class and student. Let's go ahead and create few fields and then we'll create the lookup. So class, here there would be one automatically generated field called name. So we have name, we have owner ID, last modified by. I think this is fine. This is fine. And let me check the student object. Here also there would be few. Okay, we have it. Okay, so now what do I have to do? I have to first go on the class object, and sorry, class would be the parent and students would be the child. Okay, so I will go to students and I will create a lookup relationship. Okay, so student, and then let's create a lookup relationship to class. Okay, so class. Okay, also let's keep it on the layout and save. Okay, so now I have two objects, student and class, and they are related to each other via lookup relationship. Okay, so if they are related to each other via lookup relationship, then if you actually go to the parent record and you try to create a rollup summary field, you should not be able to. So let's just go ahead and check that first. So let me go to the parent and I'll try to create a rollup summary field. See, it is disabled, right? Because there is no master detail relationship available. That is why it is already disabled. So you cannot actually choose a rollup summary option and then move ahead. Okay. So here, till here we are clear. I've created two objects. I have student and class, and I've created the lookup relationship between them. Okay. And class is the parent and student is the child. Okay. So now let me just give you a UI look that what we are actually going to try to achieve. So first of all, let me, I think I would have to create the tabs in order to show you. Yes, so let me create the tabs for student and class so that we can access via UI. Class. Let's choose anything. Okay, class and default on. We want the visibility to be on. And then save. And then let's create for student as well. Student. Okay. Okay, let me choose anything. I just was just trying to find an appropriate icon, but okay. Default on and next, save. So now I have created tab for class and student. So if I search here class or student, I should be able to see it, right? So let me search for class. So here we can see class, right? So if I go here and let me create a record over here. Class name, let's say standard 1 and save it. Here, right? And in details, we have students as 0. Let me create one more student. Sorry, one student. Okay, so student 1 and save this. And let me create one more student here. Student 2 and save this. So now I have 2 students in standard 1. Okay, so and what I want to create a field on details, and I want that field to be automatically updated every time based on the number of students I'm adding or deleting or whatever I'm doing here, right? So let's just go ahead in class object and create a field called number of students. Okay, so class object and then new. So because this field will be populating using trigger, right? So you can either keep it as a number field or you can take a text as well. So I'm just going ahead and creating a number field because I want to show the count. So here, number of students. Okay, and that's it. And I'm adding it to the layout as well. Now, if I go here and if I go here and go to class, open a record, then I should be able to see that field. But obviously there would be nothing populated in that field for now. Classes, and I'll go to the one that I've created here. So related and details. Okay, I can't see that field. So let me go ahead and add that on the page layout. So number of students, it's there. Why did I not see it? Second. Let me try to create a new class. It should have displayed on that record as well, but let me just. Okay, maybe let's just add it from the record page. Fields. And it's already showing here. I'm not sure why it's not coming up. Maybe it's not activated. I actually don't need to activate it, but yeah. Okay. You don't have to do this. It should come by default when you actually refresh the page. But I was not sure why it's not coming. So I just added it here, number of students. And let me go back and check. Number of students, right? So it started coming. So now what I want to do with my Apex trigger logic is that whatever students, number of students I am going to add over here, right? Let's say, let's go back to the other record and see, like, the scenario that I'm trying to tell. So if here I have added 2 students, then it should show me the count as 2. And let's say if I add one more student, then it should start showing me the count as 3. Okay, so let's just first target one scenario where it's just the addition of a new student. Okay, so whenever I'm inserting a new student, then it should update the number of students field on class object. Okay, and then we will go ahead and see what are the other scenarios. Let's say if you're deleting one student or deassociating or you are undeleting that record, or let's say if you're updating the student record, then what and all should happen to this field. We'll go one by one. So let's just first only focus on inserting a new student. Okay, so here so as we have discussed in previous videos, that there are two things that you have to identify. The first one is that where you would be, on what object you would be writing the trigger, and the second is finding the event on which you would be writing the logic. Okay, so here if you see closely, what am I doing? I am actually creating a student, and while I'm creating the student, I am giving the class association, right? So basically I would have to write the trigger on student object, right? Because this is the initiation point. Whenever you are going to add a new student, then only that you want that field to be updated, right? So basically I would be writing the trigger on student object, and I will be making a cross object field updation, which is nothing but the field that you just saw on details page called number of students, right? So you would be writing the trigger on student object, and you would be updating a field value on class object. Okay, so the object for you to write the trigger is student, because this is the trigger point, this is the initiation point. Your logic should only run if you're doing something with student, either you're creating, updating, deleting, undeleting, whatever you're doing, right? Then only you want that field to be updated, right? So your object is going to be student, correct? Now the next thing that we have to figure out is that what should be the event, right? So okay, so you would only be able to update this field once your student is already created, right? So before create, you can't actually calculate that, because you will not have the ID. So you will not be able to query or whatever the reference you would want to make, you will not be able to do that, because if you actually prefer before insert, right? Because you would only want to calculate once the record is actually inserted, right? So that is why we are going to consider the after insert event. Okay, so now you have identified both the things, the object on which you are supposed to write the trigger and also the event. And I hope that you got the fundamental behind choosing the after insert, because we want to calculate the number of records, right? So for that, the record should already be available, correct? Okay, so I'll just go ahead and first create triggers. So I have to write a trigger on student, right? As we discussed. So let's just go ahead and create a trigger on student object. And then we'll go ahead and create a handler. Student and trigger. So let me just copy it from this one. Okay, so okay, I can just leave it as student trigger, and events we can copy from here so that we don't have to. For example, for now I'm only considering after insert, right? So let's just only include this, or because we would be writing it for other events, right? So I'm just gonna copy everything. Although for this particular scenario, I am only going to use after insert, okay? But we would need the other events later on, so I'm just including everything here for now. Okay, and here I would have to first create a handler class, then only I can call that handler class here, right? So let's just create a class. You can create a class either from here, or you can create in your org and then fetch that class in your VS Code. So I'm just going to create from here, and then I will deploy it to okay, so student trigger handler. Okay. And let's just remove this for now. So I have this handler class. So first I have to deploy it, then only I will be able to refer it, right, in the trigger. Otherwise it will show the class does not exist. Meanwhile, let me copy this. Okay, and then yeah, let me go back to the org. Okay, let me just save it for now. We will call the methods when we are actually when we actually write a method in the handler class, then we will just call that method in our trigger. Okay, and what I'll do, I'll also fetch this trigger in my VS Code so that it will be easier to have it over there. So let me student trigger, and I'm not removing anything else for now. I'm just trying to retrieve the trigger that I wrote in the org. Okay, now let me just close out everything else. And I have the student trigger handler class where we would be writing our method or logic, whatever method you'll write right here. And then we'll have our trigger where we will actually call the method based on the event. Okay, so this is my student trigger. Okay, so we are all set. Now let's just go ahead and start writing a method that what should happen when a new student is created and that student is associated to a class. Okay, create student, and here I will just take list of student. So list. Okay. So now if you remember the bulkification, you would understand that why did I take this and why am I writing a loop here. Okay. I'm not going to iterate it again, but if you are not understanding, you should just watch previous videos. So list of students. So what do I want? I want to basically see that whatever class, right? Whatever student you're inserting, you are going to associate a class, right? We have a lookup. So whatever class you are actually giving while creating a student, I want the IDs of those classes, right? So that I can accumulate all of those IDs and perform an update on that field, right? The field on which we want to actually count the number of student records, right? So here I will just take set of IDs. Don't worry if you're not following, you will understand. So set of class IDs, okay? Okay, so here I am just gonna take the class IDs. So dot add, and my student will have class, right? So here it is not showing, so let's just go and see the exact field name. So student, and let's go to field and class, right? This is the field. And as it is a lookup, right, you don't have to write it something like class underscore c dot id. Class underscore c will itself, it is itself an id, right? Because it's a lookup, right? When you actually see it on a record, it shows you the id, right? Id of the difference, and not like a text value, right? So you just have to write class underscore c and not class underscore c dot id. Okay, so this. Okay, so I have this now. Now what I want to do is I'm gonna query on the class. Okay, and let's keep it as list class. Let me close all of these things as it is taking a lot of space. Okay, so here select ID, and then what else do we have? Number of students, right? Number, it is not auto populating the fields, but let me go ahead and number of students. And I will be writing an inner query for student, right? Because I want to calculate the size, right? So here, select ID from, and here what would you be giving? You have to give the relationship name. Okay, so if I go back, I'll show you how you can actually identify the relationship name. So yes, on student, if you go on student and if you open the lookup relationship, this one, here, this is your relationship name. This is what you have to refer when you're writing the inner query. Okay. And again, right, you just can't refer it. You have to apply underscore underscore r, right? Because it is a relationship field that you're referring to, right? So here from students underscore underscore r, okay, and this is an inner query, right? And this is still from class object, from class where id in for the recursion context, right? So this one, because this is where I have collected all the class IDs, right? On which if any student is getting created, so like, what class is there on those student, I have collected those IDs and I'm only querying those classes, right? Because I want to update on them. So here, and also here, like, like for such places, you just keep on applying the null check. If student dot class is not equals to null, because we haven't made it mandatory, right? And it is not mandatory by default because it is lookup. So you should like apply these checks. If the class is selected, then only like, it should actually enter into that block of code. Otherwise it should just exit. Okay. So here I have this. Now what do I have to do? I have to update this field, right? Number of students with actual number of students that are there for these class IDs, correct? So I will again start a loop for class object, right? And we have the list of class. Here, class object dot number of students is equals to this dot size. Okay, this will actually give you the count. Okay, that how many students are there, like, what is the count that you got when you actually queried on the class IDs. Okay, before that we forgot to add this. And let me try to deploy this. Okay, right? And then we can just update this list. I mean, you don't have to like, add it into another list and update. You can just simply make a DML on this list and it will work. So first of all, if not null, right? Not null check dot is empty. So not, if it is not empty, then what do we have to do? We have to just make an update call. So update and let me try to. Okay, so I think this is completed now. So let's just go over this method one more time. So let's say you are, I will consider like, that you are using a data loader. Let's say you are inserting multiple students at once, right? And let's say you are trying to insert 10 students at once, right? At a single time. And all of those students have something populated in class field. That means they are associated to some class. For example, let's say if this is a student, right? If I have just this student, let's say you are trying to insert similar such 10 more students, then every student, I'm assuming that every student is having something in the class field populated. Okay. So let's say for those 10 students, what do I want first? I want to fetch all the class IDs, right? Because for all those 10 students, this class could be different, right? Somebody could be like from class standard 1, and there could be like, other 2 students from standard 2, and then there could be other 3 students from standard 3, right? So every record that you're inserting, right, the student record can have a different class, right? It's not always going to be the same. So what I want to do is I want to collect all the class IDs, that what class these students are associated to, right? So considering our scenarios, if I'm trying to insert 10 students, then I will want to fetch the class of all those 10 students, right? And that is what I'm doing here. Okay, I am just inserting, sorry, I'm iterating over the list of students that, like, I'm getting in the current context, and then I'm trying to collect all the class IDs of those students, right? That is step one. So I have got, so again, considering the same scenario, if there are 10 students, then I have got the class IDs here of all the 10 student records. Okay. So that is point number one. Now, point number two is, what do I actually want to do now? Again, let's say out of those 10 students, this is my student one. So I want to actually go to this student, and here on this field, I want to update it as 1, right? Because this particular student, right, what I had just opened, this is getting inserted and it is telling me that this particular student is associated to this class. Then I want to update a field on this class based on the count. So now again, there is again one more scenario over here, right? Let's say there's student 1, and then there is student 2, and student 1 and student 2 both are associated to the same class, standard 1, right? So how many counts will I get? I will get 2 counts, right? So that is why here, if you see, I have made an inner query and I'm trying to find out the size. Okay, so here I have the IDs. What I'm trying to do is I'm querying everything, right? First of all, I'm querying number of students fields, because this is the field that I want to update. But not just this, I also want to calculate the number of students that are associated to this particular class. There could be, like, this students, and there could be other 3 students having the class standard 1 populated similarly, which is like, the way it is populated over here, right? So that is why I am making an inner query here. Select ID from students from class, right? So this inner query will actually count this for me. Okay, basically it's not counting. You have to apply the size function over here, but it's gonna give you the count. Okay, so once, and here I've applied the class IDs, that, like, again 10 students, right, and 10 class IDs. So I only want to query those. I don't want to query, like, let's say if there are other 100 classes available, I don't want to query all those 100 classes. I only want to query the classes which are associated to the student list that I'm trying to insert. Okay, so this is the list of class, and we are again iterating because we want to update this field. And how we are updating this field? By finding out the size, okay, of the students that are there. And I have just, like, I'm just checking if this is not empty, then just update this list. Okay, so this function is ready. Now let's just go ahead and call this function in the trigger after insert, right? If you guys remember. Let me just copy it from account trigger. I just don't want to write it. So we can just copy from here and we'll change it. Okay. So, sorry, is insert, right? And after. Okay, it was written here. So let me just Control Shift P, and why is it not coming? I don't know. It's okay. I was just trying to comment this part, but anyway, let me just remove it. It's fine. So after insert, right? And I'm just gonna call my function over there. So this is my class and this is my function, and I want list of students. So trigger dot new, right? That will give me the list of records in context, right? So after insert and the class name dot the function name, and I pass the list. So this should be fine. And let me first deploy this. And then we'll go ahead and deploy this as well. Now let's just go ahead and try it out. So here is my student. What I would do is, let me go to this class and create one more student. Okay. And then we'll see if this is getting updated or not. So insert of new student. Okay. So student 3 and save. See, this got updated, right? Number of students 3, because you have 3 students over here, right? But none of the other scenarios will work. Let's say if I delete one of the students, right, it is not going to show me 2, because I have only written the logic for insert, correct? Let me delete this. And if I go here, it is still showing me 3, because we haven't written that logic. We have only written for insert. Okay. So now let's just move ahead and see that what should happen if I actually let's say delete a student, or I can also go ahead and update a student, right? Let's say if I click on edit and I can change the class, right? So in that case also it should work, right? If I update the class for this student as standard 2, then this student basically should not be appearing here. This student should start appearing under standard 2 class, right? And then again, right, because one student is now associated to some other class, so only one student will be left here. So in that case, the details, again, if you go on the details, this field should get updated to 1, right? So those scenarios will let's just go ahead and try to achieve them. So let me create another function for delete first. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy the same thing, and here recalculate on delete. Okay. Okay. Now again, so the same scenario, right? I want to recalculate the field after the deletion, right? So after delete. So that is why I will call this function in after delete. So here again, what I want to do is I want to actually receive the list of students. This will be nothing but trigger.old. This list you will get from trigger.old. Okay. So when we actually call this function from trigger in after delete, if you guys remember, in after delete we get trigger.old, right? So this is going to give me that set of record, right? So here I have to do the same thing basically, like there's nothing different, right? Because the logic is same. It is going to calculate the size, right? So if I have list of students, I am going to fetch the list of set of class IDs. I'm going to query, and then I am just recalculating the size and updating the list. So it should work the same way. Now let's just go ahead and try calling this function over in after delete. So 1 second. So delete and after delete, right? This is the function. And I think we have, after delete we have included. Let me deploy this. Oh, sorry, here we have to, I wanted to pass trigger.old. Okay, this we haven't deployed yet. Deploy this. Okay, so both the trigger and the class is deployed. Now let me just go ahead and see if it works on delete or not. Okay, so here, okay, let me just delete one of the students here, and then this count should start showing me 1. Okay, let me delete this one. Here, 1, right? Now let me add one more student, anything, and save. So now there are 2 students associated to this class. So here the count should be 2 because we have the logic on insert. So 2, right? Again, if I go ahead and delete this one, it should show me 1. So this is working too. Now let's just move ahead to the third scenario. And what I want to do in the third scenario is, let me show you that what do we want to achieve. So student 4, save, okay. And let me create one more. So I have 3 students in standard 1. Okay. Now let me open this. Okay. Let me open class and see that I believe we had just created one class. Let's go ahead and create one more. Okay. So class. Yeah, we have standard 2, right? So what we are going to do is, so let's say if out of these 3 students, now if you see the record would be 3, right? But let's say if I edit this student, this one, and if I edit the class, let's say here, I'm just gonna give standard 2. So that means the moment I hit on save, this student will not show up here. This student is going to show up under standard 2, right? Is it not refreshed? Let me try to refresh it. 2, right? The third one, I associated it to standard 2. So if I go to standard 2, I will be seeing that student. Here it is, right? So again, now in this case also the count should get updated, right? It is still showing me 3. But when I'm actually changing or updating something on the class, then also this field should update, right? So that the update logic we have to write. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's start this with and let's give it a name as recalculate on update. And here I am going to take new list, and I'm going to take the map of, like, the old map. I'll tell you why we are taking the old map. So, and then student. Okay. Okay, so before we proceed, I want to tell you something. So let's say if I am on the class, right? So I want this field to recalculate only if, let's say I went to student, right? And I click on edit and I'm simply clicking on save. Then I don't want my logic to rerun. Okay. I only want my logic to rerun if there's a change on this value. Okay. If let's say I cross it out and again I'm selecting the same value. I am not actually changing this value, but I'm just selecting the same value, or maybe I'm not changing anything at all. Or even if I'm changing anything else, I don't want my logic to rerun and calculate the value, right? Because my whole purpose of doing this is that if there's a change on the association, right, on this field, then only I want that logic to run so that it can recalculate and show the updated count. Now the question is that how will you know that, if there's a change on class field over here or not? So that you can only compare with new and old value. Okay. So let's say for any field, if old value and new value are equal, that means there is no change, right? But if the old value and the new value are different, that means there is a change, right? That is why your old value and new value are not same, correct? So that is why we have taken the old map. So what we'll do is, from the new list, we will compare the class value with the old map. Okay. So the old map will show whatever the existing data that you have, right? So we have to check if it is not equals. That means if there is a change, then only we will go ahead and update. Okay. I hope you got this point. So let's just go ahead and start the logic. So here, let it be this, and here I am just gonna pass new list. I want to update over the new list. But before I actually add the class values to this set, I want to apply that check, right? If the old value is not equals to the new value, if there is a change, then only I want to do this. Otherwise, I don't want to do this. Okay. So student dot class not equals to, then what I want to do is from old map. So old map is nothing but like, key value pair of ID and student, right? So from old map, I need to fetch the class. So here, this is how you can do it. Old map dot get. In dot get, if you actually pass the ID, you will get the student, right? And then from the student, you can get the class. So dot get, and how will you pass the ID? You can pass the ID from here. Student dot ID. So the moment you use the get function of map, you get the value part. Okay. So I have passed the ID, student dot ID. So the moment I pass the ID, that means I have the student record now, but I don't want the whole record. I only want the class value, right? So here dot class. Okay. So now I have the class field of the old map. That means the existing record, and then the new value which user will actually try to insert and update, right? Like while updating whatever the value is going in, I can this is that value. Okay. So if they are not equal, that means there's a change, right? Then only I want to store those ID, right? The class ID. So here I have this, and then again I will be doing the same thing here, students dot size, and then update, right? So this is done. Now let's just go ahead and call this, and also let me deploy this. And also I'm not applying null check and all of that. You can those are the best practices. You should always apply the null check. For example, here you should also apply here you should apply the null check. If there's a value in the class, or let's say if somebody could be just removing the class, right? Or let's say if the existing class has a value or not. So those kind of null check you can apply. For example, if old map dot gets to dot id dot class is not null, so those kind of checks, right, you can apply here. So I'm not going to do all of that. Okay, so let me deploy this again. So after update, right? So let me and this is the function, right? After update, and what and all I was receiving here, new list and old map, right? So old map I can just trigger. Okay, you can just do it like this, trigger dot dot new, and then trigger dot old map. Okay, and that's it. Let me deploy this. Now let's just go and see if it is working or not. Otherwise we'll check again. So this is my record, and let's check out the scenario first. Here it is showing me 3, right? What I'm going to do is I am going to update okay, I'm going to update one of these students. So let's say student 4, or let me add one first so that so I have 3 students, right? And here it is 3. Now I'm going to deassociate one student. So I am removing student 4 from standard 1 to standard 2. So the moment I do that, this should start showing me 2, because there will be only 2 students left. So this one, click on edit, and here standard 2, it was 1, right? Because we were on 1, and save this. And you have to refresh this. So 2 students, and here it is still showing me 3. So let's just go and check what went wrong. Okay, so here Okay. Okay, so here if you see, right, these are the class IDs that we are querying, and this is the list that we are updating, right? But if you see, this is the new class that is being provided, right? But you actually have to make update on the old class, right? That was there. For example, this class, right? This is the class from where I actually removed one student, right? And associated to some other class, right? So this class was supposed to be the one which was supposed to get updated. That means the class from old map, correct? So that is why it was not working. So here, this should rather be this one, this class, this ID, okay? So here, and because you're not supposed to update the new one, right? You are supposed to update the old one, because that is where, like, you are deassociating students from. So let me deploy this. Let me go ahead and let's just take, let me take standard 2, and here I have 3 students, and here I have count 3, right? So from here, let me just deassociate student 1 to standard 1. It is on standard 2. I'm just gonna make him standard 1 and save. Now let me refresh. See, the count is 2, right? I removed one student and the count came in as 2. Now let's say I deassociate another student, student 6, again to student 1 and save. So here only student 4 will remain, and we have to refresh the page to see the changes, and 1, right? So this is how your update is working. And so this was the update. So what and all did we cover? We covered the create scenario, we covered the delete scenario, and we also covered the update scenario. Okay, so these are the mainly 3 things that will happen to a record, right? So this was all about creating a roll-up summary, right? And I hope that you guys also understood what a roll-up summary is, and where and all it works, and if it doesn't work, on lookup, then how you can now, now you should be comfortable in creating a roll-up summary and making it work using Apex triggers. Okay, so in my next video I would be coming up with few more trigger scenarios, and we'll practice more, and we'll end the topic on Apex trigger scenarios. Till then, stay tuned. Bye bye.